Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Perry, and thank you, Jacques, for a wonderful introduction. And thank you to the IFSCC for giving us the opportunity to share knowledge. It really is a passion of mine to educate, which is why I've been on the education for so long. But today's topic, I know that there's people from all over the world, and we all have completely different backgrounds, and I'm not sure how advanced many of you are. So please, throughout the presentation today, please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A. We'll cover them later. So fire those questions away. Happy to handle them at the end. And if there's really something you don't understand, you are welcome to ask at any time. So like I said, it's emulsion basics today. And it's quite a short period of time to cover quite an extensive topic that normally I have about a 6-hour lecture on. So to condense it and cover the main key points is really what today is about. So it's skimming the surface of it. Of course, there's lots more deeper information, and perhaps in future sessions, we can always do something a bit more advanced. But let's get straight on to what the emulsion basics are. So I lecture this in the cosmetic science course locally in South Africa. And normally when I do this lecture to the students, I started off with a video that actually I found it online. And if you ever do find it, it's a very fun, quirky video. But I wasn't going to start that today in respect of time. But to give you a bit of background, the video starts off with Waterman and Oilman. They meet in a dark alley, and a fight is about to break out as they cannot stand each other, do not want to be around each other. And as they are threatening to knock each other's lights out, along drops this superhero, separates them, calms the situation down, and his name is Eddie Emulsifier. And he saves the day by becoming the mutual friend to oil and water and finding out what they have in common. And they go off and create a wonderful love story of an emulsion. It's quite a quirky video, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And it's got a very silly little tune that will be stuck in your head for days. But if you ever see it online, it's a really great presentation. And the reason I usually like to start it out with that is to really simplify it in terms of emulsion technology can be very daunting and very scary when you come across it the first time. And yet it doesn't need to be. It is complex, it is technical, but there's actually a lot of very simple, basic steps as to why emulsions are so necessary in the industry and ways to make them work. And that's what we're going to start diving into. So a quick little overview of what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to go into the definition, the importance of emulsions, the types of emulsions that we can get as well. Then we start getting into how do we create them. Of course, it's all good and well knowing how important they are. We need to start creating them. And then one of the key issues with emulsions, and that separates emulsions from any other category in cosmetics like surfactant-based washes or whatever, is of course the stability. As I mentioned, water and oil do not like each other. So it is quite challenging to keep them together in a friendly environment. So we'll be looking at some stability factors. Then just briefly going to touch on how would you select emulsifiers? There are thousands out there. So we're going to look at ways why you would choose certain emulsifiers over others, and how can you select the right ones to ensure a stable formulation. Then we're going to look at stabilizing it, and a couple of key considerations that are not necessarily the technical ones, but more sort of commercial considerations and things to consider when you are selecting emulsifiers. So we'll be covering all of that briefly today. So in a nutshell, like I'd already said, the definition of an emulsion, I mean, you can read it there on screen. I'm not going to read it for you, but it really is a system of two usually liquids that don't like being together. They're immiscible or partially miscible. That's it. And the key words to look at here in this definition, it's the two liquids, and one is suspended or dispersed throughout the other. The reason I'm highlighting those two words so specifically is because that is the trick with emulsions. The one phase does not dissolve into the other. Otherwise, you would have something like a solution. Like if you're putting salt in water, it completely dissolves and you have a saline solution. With emulsions, and what makes them tricky is that the one phase, the internal phase, is usually dispersed inside the continuous phase or the external phase. So the way you suspend them is by having very small droplet sizes. And this is where it all gets complicated. So before we just dive onto a little bit more of the technical stuff, if they are so complicated, why are they so important?